Hey Josh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dasha?
I'm great. Thank you for letting me come to your office.
Yeah, welcome. I'm happy to have you here.
Long time no see, right?
A long time no see, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a little story as we recorded the whole interview and then it was deleted, but now we're gonna do better, right?
We're going to do round two.
Okay, and I think we have some big news to announce. Do you want to start with this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're announcing our 12 million seed round at 100 million valuation. So
Woo-hoo!
very, very excited.
So how much did you raise in total?
We raised 12 million.
And before? Like in total, all rounds?
12 million.
12 million. Oh, 12 million total. Okay.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels good. It feels like we're ready to grow, and it feels like it's time to go back to work.
Right now?
Right now.
Thank you. But you are a solo non-technical founder, and you went through one of the most prestigious accelerators that exist in the world, which is a Speedrun. What's your secret sauce?
Well, you know, Dasha, I ask myself this every single day, and I think I'm just very lucky. But I think, you know, I genuinely think that we live in a new era where really the AI and the technology that's available to all of us is so powerful that you can really take an idea to life very quickly. And so I think that a lot of the things that maybe were valuable assets and were super important kind of in previous generations of company building are very different. And I think that honestly, I think very controversial to say, but I really do think that anyone nowadays really is technical with all the tools that we have available to us.
Yeah, so basically, do you believe that the future of tech is non-technical?
I believe that the future of tech is in fact technical, but I think that anyone can be technical these days.
Because of the tools that are available.
Because of the tools. So I think that the learning curve has never been shorter and faster. And so I think like having an understanding of how a lot of these systems work is always going to be very important. But what might have taken X amount of time can now be done like 100 times faster. And so I think really anyone can start to put together an amazing team, understand how all this technology works, and really take a lot of the ideas that they have and bring it to life.
Isn't it magical?
It's pretty magical. I'd say it's very, very exciting.
To the point that it's even scary now, sometimes.
Many days, like the capabilities that we even see at Aragon, I'm like, how is it doing this? So many days we're both very surprised, pleasantly, and terrified.
So what are you building at Aragon?
Aragon is an applied AI lab, and we build what we call an AI operating system, which is the one place that you can really operate your company out of. We connect to a whole bunch of different business applications, and basically instead of having to log in and do workflows across 10, 20, 30 different applications, you can do all of those workflows in one place in Aragon.
So let's give an example. Let's say I open my laptop, I go to Aragon, and then I connect like Slack, I don't know, iMessage, HubSpot. Is it the way it works?
Yeah, so a perfect example would be how Aragon today does customer provisioning. So in Aragon, I say, hey, Puzzle has just signed a wonderful enterprise contract for this amount. Please go ahead and issue the payment link. Please issue our contract.
Enterprise.
Please enterprise. A contractor, I say, company ABC, right? And Aragon it's connected to my Stripe.
Yeah.
It'll go and provision basically a payment link. It's connected to the bank. It'll go scan automatically for payment.
Yeah.
Once it sees payment, it will then go and provision. It's connected to my AWS. It'll go and provision an EC2 instance. It'll provision S3. It'll do all the DNS routing. So literally what would be like an infrastructure engineer, and a post-sale, maybe customer onboarding person, Aragon is doing all of that, right, for me. And there's many more examples of what it can do, but quite literally most of the operations, another one of my favorite is on invoices. Aragon's connected to my email. It scans my email every second, basically. It's connected to my WhatsApp, my iMessage. It will text me if there is an invoice that I have to pay. I've given it approval limits. It's connected to my bank, my credit card, and all I have to do is say, hey, can you go and pay it? And Aragon will pay my cleaning invoice for the office. It will go and pay, customer subscription, whatever it might be, all by itself. And so you just find all of these very magical, workflows that can get done end to end that would have taken, 10, 20, 30 minutes. And you compound that, and it's really like saving like hours and hours, like every single day. It's a pretty magical experience.
Yeah, so what is the main specific pain point you're solving with it?
So I think it's really first of all, it's the ability to operate much faster. And second of all, I think a lot of human workflows that were typically done in these kind of legacy SaaS applications basically are all going to be done inside of Aragon. So you don't have to go and log into any SaaS application really ever again. Aragon indexes all of them, puts it into its memory, and we'll be able to build you CRM on the fly. We'll be able to do a go-to-market campaign for you on the fly. We'll be able to literally pay invoices for you. We'll be able to onboard employees for you, send offer letters, and many more things that before required a person and time to go in and do all these things manually.
So the goal is to have it like by default on your laptop. So instead of going to different apps, you just always go to Aragon straight away.
Exactly.
And I can say that you use Aragon like all the time.
All the time.
Is it true? So literally, like you are like the father of the product, and you literally use it like all the time, nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, we run Aragon through Aragon, so it's been really, really fun to build a product where we use it. Everyone on the team uses it. All of our communication is done, through written basically form, so Aragon can index all of it. It's just been really fun to work on a product that we quite literally run our company on ourselves.
Yeah, we run Eragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so clearly you are like an AI native company, right?
Yeah.
So let's just like find the perfect definition for that. What is an AI native company for you?
I think the easiest definition is just when a company was started and what it's building. So I think most Silicon Valley startups, let's say after late 2023, maybe 2024, I would consider as AI native startups. And most of what they're building is one of three areas. So it's either on the application layer, it's either on kind of the infrastructure layer, or it's on the labs, like the frontier model layer. So I think if you're a company in the applications, infrastructure, or kind of lab space, you'd be an AI native company, or a startup, I would say.
So this is the timing, this is the first thing. But how differently do they operate, these AI native companies?
I mean, I think the best example would be, we personally are working with a $40 billion company that has existed for about 70 years. They're a very large manufacturing company. And they have 120,000 people, and they're a $40 billion company. I think that there is a company here in Silicon Valley, Cursor, which has maybe 250 people, and plus or minus in the last valuation, maybe around 40 billion.
Yeah.
So I think that the difference really just couldn't be more clear, where you have two companies, both worth 40 billion. One has 100-something thousand people. The other has, a couple hundred people. I think that AI native companies, you really infuse AI into like every line of business, every workflow. And even more than that, I think all the job functions are changing, right? If you look at the org charts for a lot of these companies, there are just even like new roles that haven't even existed before, which combine a lot of these maybe roles that we would have seen previously, right? Across everything, go-to-market, customer support, engineering, product, so on and so forth. So I think it's in what they're building, how they're building, and then how companies are literally structuring their org charts.
Yeah, interesting. AI is everywhere right now. And like you also sell to enterprise, right?
Yeah.
And what is the role of AI in enterprise in the next like 3 to 5 years? How do you see it?
I think that it's the most exciting market and the most exciting opportunity to really be in. I think we're just maybe at the top of the first inning. If you look at most of the world's data outside of what the frontier models have trained on, it's inside of enterprises. For example, like ExxonMobil has probably close to the amount of data that GPT-3 was trained on. that is really sitting inside of the company. And so I think like the next 5-10 years, it's really going to be about, how do you unlock the value of the data that you've built up over the previous decades inside of your company, and what are all the amazing, workflows and competitive advantages that you can do because it's uniquely your data that other companies and other competitors wouldn't be able to do. So I think it's a really, really exciting time, and the market and the opportunity, I think, is so early and so large. So we're super excited to be part of that.
Yeah, this is great. And I think you're doing an amazing job selling to enterprise. Any tips that you can, give about selling to them?
Yeah.
That's not an easy job, right?
Yeah, I think the enterprise, like the corporation, you have a name of a corporation, but effectively it's a subgroup of multiple different P&Ls, right? And you can almost envision each P&L as basically its own company within the company. And so I think like three things. First is if you can be like super structured as far as like who you're going to work with at this company to maybe like start an engagement, that's super helpful. I think then the second is like what exactly are you going to work with them on? And then third is if you can very clearly tie it to what business outcome they would be able to get. I think that reception has been going very, very well.
Super structured, know how to work with them, and explain the value.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do you also identify those people who you need to talk within the enterprise in order to sell your products? I know a lot of companies struggle with that.
Yeah, I think right now, like I said, it's so early in this whole adoption, especially within enterprises. There's all sorts of different use cases. So people are very much so receptive to, kind of thought leadership. So I think like to the extent possible, companies and the people inside of the companies, they really want to view themselves as innovators, and they really want to be the person at the company that has spearheaded, an AI initiative that can, unlock value X, Y, and Z. And it's really about, working super closely with them to understand like what their vision is for like the group that they run and that they manage. What have they been thinking about, right? And working super closely to help them understand like what is possible and what can be done, so that they can share that story internally, right? That they were the innovator on this that really kind of brought this project to life.
Make them innovators.
I think so. I think like if you look at most of the early companies in the Valley that had success, I love to point to Oracle. The early customers of Oracle were actually like the CIA was their first customer.
Yeah.
And so the question is, okay, why would the CIA buy a 3-person startup product? That's pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
And when they did interviews with a gentleman by the name of Dave Roberts later, he said, we bought Larry, as in Larry Ellison. We really bought the vision that Larry was bringing us on, and we knew that there might be all sorts of different, problems or bugs or what have you. But what we were really buying was this like very exciting vision of, how we can store our data. And we wanted to go on that with Larry. So I think for us, and in general, I think it's really around a story and a vision that they're excited to go on with you.
You later, here we go.
Listen, if I can have 1/100th of that success, we'll be very happy.
Yeah, but you sell to enterprise and also to smaller teams, right?
Yeah.
The founders.
For sure.
Individuals.
Not so much individuals, no.
Mostly B2B.
Yeah, only B2B.
Okay, and it's interesting, because you mentioned Oracle, but you used to work at Oracle, right? And in Salesforce. How does it feel to run your own startup after being in a corporate world?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that there is a lot of amazing things to learn from those companies.
Okay.
I think that there was, at Oracle specifically, you really learn this culture of just competing. It's a very competitive culture. You really compete to win, every single engagement. And at Salesforce, you really learn kind of like camaraderie and teamwork. The way that whole company is structured is all around, Ohana and working together and so on and so forth. And I also think there's, of course, respectfully, many, 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 many things to unlearn. And I think for me, big companies are big and they have processes that they would like for most people to follow because they're already big. And so to the extent possible, anything out of the box is not necessarily that welcomed. It creates, I think, more work, right?
Yeah.
And I usually found myself doing many of these things out of the box.
Rules breaker.
A little bit. And I think, yeah, for me, it was, there was a lot of good to take away and there's a lot of things to unlearn. Yeah, made a big change and here we are.
Yeah, interesting. No, definitely a different environment. And do you believe that smaller teams, especially like in AI native companies, can outperform the enterprises right now?
I mean, for sure. And I think that it's happening everywhere, all across Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You name a company, they're taking market share from one of the incumbents, anywhere from tens of billions to potentially hundreds of billions. I mean, everywhere, right? I think that this is really, if you look at the last cycle that we had that was anywhere close to an opportunity where I think startups could capture the value, it would be internet. And if you look at how that played out, that added about 20 trillion in GDP, which is basically the sum of the Magnificent Seven, which outside of Microsoft were all started in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And I think something very similar, except it might be more than 7 companies in this cycle. And I think it's going to be more than 20 trillion in GDP. And I mean, look, all of the investment, right, across the infrastructure and startups, it all reflects that. Everyone thinks that this is a bigger opportunity than internet. And internet was 20 trillion. So I think that this could be pretty big and pretty favorable for startups to capture a lot of the value.
Yeah. But do you think there is something that enterprise should do differently to compete back with startups,
I think Vinod Khosla actually has a really good quote on this, which I'll borrow from him, which is that Airbnb wasn't invented by Marriott, and Uber wasn't invented by the taxi medallions, and Facebook wasn't invented by AOL, and so on and so on and so forth. And so I think it's really hard to kind of have like groundbreaking invention in these larger companies. And I think what will probably play out will be how can these companies take advantage and adopt basically all the innovation coming from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And then what will be interesting will be to see which ones adopt it first and better, and then see how they're able to outcompete their competitors in the market, right? Who will get more market share from who on these larger enterprises. But I don't think, as kind of I think history has shown, I don't think many of these groundbreaking inventions will necessarily come from these large companies.
Yeah, we have you for that, so that's the most important.
We're trying, and I think the whole valley, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's even hard not to build a startup here. At some point you feel this like you're like intoxicated with the vibe.
Definitely.
If you're not building, you have this itch to build. So,
yeah, for sure.
Which is very hard to resist, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I have a quick story actually to tell you about my first time coming to San Francisco. So the first time I came, when I started even thinking about what is this, startup thing, I remember I went to a happy hour organized by the wonderful Jen Yip. Shout out to Jen, founders you should know. And I remember this moment forever. I went in Silicon Valley, as you know, many of the social functions usually go something like this. Hey, I'm Josh. Hey, I'm Dasha. Hey, Dasha, what are you building?
Yeah.
Right? Very, very quick. And so I said, at the time I was at Salesforce, I said, I'm at Salesforce. I said, what are you building? And the first answer that I got is autonomous drones for delivering, medical equipment to third world countries. I was like, wow, where has this like kind of ambition and thought been my whole life?
Yeah.
Second person, hey, what are you building? I'm working on autonomous robots to deliver equipment to you at your desk. Like, whoa! I called my parents. I said, guys,
I'm doing something wrong in life.
Yeah, like this is the most wonderful, ambition and thought to be around, and it is, to your point, just like very contagious. It's an incredibly ambitious place, and everyone is really trying to, push themselves and therefore kind of the world, to have the most impact and be the best place and be the best people that they can be.
Do you think we have a little bit of a toxic culture here?
That's an interesting question. I think it really depends on.
How do you define toxic?
I think it depends on how you define toxic, and I think it depends on the frame, the perspective, right? So everything is, I think someone wise once said that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. I think it is the most incredible place on planet Earth. I think that the culture is one of, camaraderie, innovation, hard work for sure. And I think that this whole place is geared, really towards startups. Like if you're a founder or you're, at a startup, and pretty much most of social interactions or anything like this is rooted around the startup culture. And I think that that's what attracts many people to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and it's funny. I once had a conversation with Jasper from Artisan.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jasper. And he
Shout
said,
out.
like, when I came here, I was so shocked, like, why everything is closed after like 8 p.m., And then I realized it's because you have to be focused on building.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
that's exactly what's
It's
going
true.
on here.
There is literally nothing to do. Like everything closes at 8 o'clock.
We should do it again, not Corgi Cafe.
That's right.
Shout out to Corgi,
Yeah,
24/7.
Yeah, thank you to Nico, Josh, and Emily, the whole Corgi team, because actually outside of Corgi, everything else closes at 8 o'clock. Except for their 24/7 cafe.
Yeah. And remind me, you moved to San Francisco just last year in 2025?
Yeah, in August, yeah.
So you had your connection, nothing like, I don't know, no parents involved into all these things. So you just came here, you started going to meetups. Just a while later, just like a little bit later, sorry, you're already going through Speedrun, you've raised a lot of money, you're building the company, you have a team, you have an office space. Wow.
Thank you.
I mean, do you even realize like just what happened?
It goes very fast. I think I'm very lucky, and
That's why our interview got deleted, because you're lucky, of course.
and I think, to the extent possible, try to like appreciate a lot of the moments for sure. And just super fortunate, all the way around to have the opportunity to build, right, and to try to make an impact in my way.
Yeah. Tell me about your Speedrun experience. I was just recently at their demo day. It was great. So how did it change your, the company's vision, or like how did this time was like helpful for you? What did you learn from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it totally changed the course of my life. I think a few things. So first, the accelerator provides a confine of time. Humans, by definition, we like to, by default, move things if we can.
Okay. True.
Right? And, a call, a workout, whatever it is. But what happens is there is a set day and time where a certain event is going to happen. In the case of an accelerator, it's usually a demo day.
Yeah.
And it's really, therefore, primarily up to you for what input you will put into that, knowing that there is no way you can move that day.
Yeah.
So I think like that the confine was super, super helpful. That's one. The second is like just radical accountability. So I think I actually even recreated almost an accelerator experience post the accelerator, which is, every Wednesday we'd meet for office hours, and you go in, you meet with a partner, and you speak about, what happened week over week, right? What progress is made, what are the highs, what are the lows, where do you need help? And like just that accountability of going to someone that you respect every single week, and you want there to be, right, something positive to share.
You still meet with your partner, or are you the partner now for your team?
I meet with now, I have wonderful investors on the cap table. I meet with almost all of them, very very frequently, every Wednesday. And we,
I got it.
and we
very, very frequently.
and we recreate the entire thing.
Yeah.
So I think first, just the time. The second, I think, is accountability. And then third would be, it really forces you to take like a vision, narrow it, and make as much progress as you possibly can in a short amount of time. So I think that those three things were just super, super helpful.
Yeah, and I know that like a lot of founders, when they go through accelerators, after that they get a little bit depressed because things were moving so fast, and then suddenly you realize, especially if you're not based in San Francisco also, you go back home, and you're just like, oh wow, what do I do now? You know, like I'm alone, I have to somehow motivate myself. So that's why I love your thing that you're doing with your partner. I think that definitely helps you keep going.
I mean, for sure. I think you graduate and then you're in
Great.
this world, right? And again, like for me, what was super helpful was just to keep that, rigor, keep that pressure,
Yeah.
keep that time constraint,
Yeah.
and to the best of my ability, recreate that environment where you just keep trying to push yourself and move as fast as possible.
Yeah. Keeps pressure. You see, toxic culture. You love being pressured. You know?
I do.
Normal people don't say things like that.
I, for some weird reason, do well with pressure, and I enjoy it. I slept on literally an air mattress, until
Yeah.
well after we did the seed round, and
Yeah.
for the sole purpose of, I enjoyed. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I enjoyed the fact that I would be getting up and my whole back would be, aching, and whatever the case is. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much because I was like, okay, when we do the seed round, I'll get a mattress.
Yeah.
It would give me something, give me something to look forward to.
That is funny. Okay, so what does it mean a great investor for you?
I think investors have different value adds, so I use
Yeah.
all of mine very differently. So I think some are extremely helpful for, let's say, recruiting. If I'm evaluating a candidate, if there's a candidate that we want to close, there is a bunch that I can call and jump right in and help me close a candidate, for example. I think some are very great when it comes to introductions and business development. They've got big portfolios where they'll send all of these emails for you to different founders, and Soma is one very good in that regard. I think Soma, yeah, I think Soma, single-handedly at this point has gotten me over 10, 15 customers from the portfolio. It's been amazing to work with them. And then I think some are great for capital, right? So like I think
No money, no honey.
so I think all of them are a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I call them all for very different things. But I would say what they
Yeah.
all are good for, is perspective, right? On they've seen it. They invest in a lot of companies. You can share the good, you can share the bad, you can get feedback. So super helpful in that regard.
Okay, interesting. Another thing I wanted to bring up is I know you host a lot of events, and basically that's kind of a good GDM motion for you.
Yeah.
Why do you believe in events?
I think, like I said before, everything is changing, and I think now community, especially in B2B, no one would be saying that like a couple of years ago, but it's so important. So I think there's something called brand equity, which is really that people want to buy from brands that that they look up to or that they view as trusted, and so to the extent possible, we want to really build the Eragon brand to do that. And our way of doing that is through community, and one of those channels is really thinking of different experiences and different thoughtful campaigns almost that we can run with founders to show them that we really care about founders. We really want to work with founders. We want to be a trusted company in Silicon Valley that you can quite literally run your business out of. And so we do as many things as we can in kind of pursuit of that.
Your favorite event?
Favorite event I think was the Chase Center.
Yeah, so just for the context, you rented the whole Chase Center
We
when
did.
you just moved to San Francisco.
We did.
With Corgi, which is also another great company, and you just got all the best speakers there that you could even dream of. Definitely a good event.
Yeah, it was really fun. We wanted to put together something for the community here. We did it in the Chase Center, and again, I think that this is probably the only city on planet Earth where two startups, I mean, where two startups seriously would get an NBA basketball arena and host like just an evening to explore where the world's going to be going with some incredible thought leaders. I don't know anywhere else, that something like that would happen. So it was really special, and it was super fun.
Yeah, next time invite me, please. I'm on a wait list. Okay, and Another thing is, what's the hardest thing about building a company? Right now you have AI and so many tools and Eragon that you use all the time. Is there something that is really difficult for you?
I think that, I think honestly the entire thing, like,
Yeah.
I would say building a company is hard, right? I think,
Yeah, I think so.
finding PMF, right? I think we're pretty fortunate that we're at a space where we feel that we have something like
How
that.
does it feel?
It feels like everything breaks. So like it
Breaks.
breaks. So like we celebrated on Friday. I mean, our system went down, which normally you wouldn't celebrate, but for us, it was like so many users that we were provisioning, so many customers that we were onboarding, that it broke. And so I was like, okay, this is a fun moment. Like this is a good thing, right? So it feels like that, where a lot of the things are breaking, and then you have to just really solve problems. So it's kind of like one problem after the other problem after the other problem,
Yeah.
and just you really figuring out like how you can solve them as quickly as you can. And I think, listen, just from me personally, like one of the best advice that I had heard was from Ali, who's one of the co-founders of Databricks, and he shared that when he was building the company, the first thing that he did was, he was an engineer, so he had never built an engineering team, he never managed engineers. He never built a product team. He never built a sales team, finance team, marketing team, ops team. And so the first thing he did was he would, within the portfolio, go and try and find, the best companies that were doing very well, and ask them, how did you build your engineering team? Like, who were the first 10 hires? What did you look for? How did you structure the culture? What cadence? All these different questions, right? And so I think for me, like on this journey of company building, it's really a learning experience, which is like, how do you build out the best teams that you can possibly build out to go after, this mission of like really just changing the way that enterprises kind of work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, great. And your parents were immigrants, right? What is something that you learned from them? Because obviously I think immigrants have a very special type of character or so, because they have to go through a lot of different things. What did you learn from them that influenced your journey, or maybe something that you want to unlearn?
Oh, good questions. Yeah, so I think I'll start with the first. What is something that I learned from them? I think really integrity and hard work. So I think that the immigrant mentality is very real. My parents came here with no money, no English, the classic immigrant story, and I just really saw like firsthand, just what kind of just hard work, like attention to detail, integrity, like that you can really go far on those kind of ideal like American values. And I was able to see that like firsthand from the house that I started in when I was first born to what my parents were able to do, like was really, really cool. I'd say something to unlearn, the taste for Russian cuisine.
You don't like it?
No, I don't.
You don't like it?
I don't.
Oh my God, seriously?
I seriously, I can't.
Oh, I miss it so much.
I can't do the borscht. I can't do the like. So I'd say something to unlearn for sure.
Do they still feed you with?
For sure would be the wonderful cuisine that is Russian cuisine. If this is me.
Definitely, some dishes are hard to explain. I would put it this way.
I think that the moment that I saw the choice for dinner one night as cow tongue was the moment in which my appeal for this.
So
food.
what's yours? Like burger and fries?
Yeah, Papa John's.
Oh my God,
Mickey
this is
D's.
so bad.
Taco Bell.
No, yeah, but in general, I mean, I think you're like a good son for your parents, and the example that you're showing is amazing. They're probably really proud, or maybe they think that you're crazy. I don't know. It depends. Probably, like live in corporate world for building a startup.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, but I love how you like stopped the meeting when your mom called and you said just like, yeah, I have a minute. That's just like prioritizing your parents. This is amazing. The final one, if not this, if not Aragon, if it doesn't go, what's next?
I think that there is a part of me that would run like a corner of a beach town and have a bodega, like a water store sport, like a jet ski rental, and we just run that on some island and just hang out and just chill, I think. But it's hard to think of anything else. Like I genuinely really like what I do. And I know it's like a cop-out answer, but I think
That's also very different from what you're doing now.
it's very, very different. I mean, I think it's the exact opposite, which would be attracted.
So either all in or beach life.
I think it's got it right. I think it's basically, it's got to be like, hey, we're going to go for this thing. Or like, hey, I'm just going to chill this, I'm going to just cruise this life out, right? So I think it's like one or the other.
Motivational piece for all founders who are hesitating to build right now, really want to, but scared or have a lot of doubts in their heads about fundraising, about everything. Something that you want to tell them all.
I would say like have a vision, but be super flexible in how you get there. And you can always go after the vision, but maybe the iterations along the way might look a little different than what you thought. And that would be number one. And I would say number two is usually movement solves a lot of problems. So to the extent possible, just keep going, just keep moving one step in front of the other, and listen to customers or get as much feedback as you really can. And so I say basically both those things.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Dasha.
Yay!